There is a woman in the book of Job that most people overlook. She lost everything her husband lost: the children, the home, and the life they had built together. But nobody sat with her in the ash heap. Nobody came to comfort her. Tonight, we're going to sit with her. My name is Joanne, and this is Sleep for the Anxious Soul, a quiet place where Scripture meets you in the dark and where you are never alone. They will tell you his story as though it is only about suffering. They will speak of the ash heap, of the boils, of the losses, of the silence that fell over our house like a cloud that would not lift. But I knew him before all of that. I knew the man who rose before dawn, not because the livestock demanded it, not because the servants needed him, but because he wanted to be before God, before anyone else could claim his attention. Every single morning, without fail. I used to watch him from the doorway. He would stand still for a long moment, just still. I always believed in those moments that he was not thinking about the flocks or the fields or the 10 children sleeping in the room next door. He was thinking about God. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This was Job's regular custom. Job 1 verse 5. That was my husband. That was the man I watched build our life. Not on stone and timber alone, but on something he believed was more solid than either. His integrity, his reverence. He never separated the two. People came to Job. I don't know if you understand what I mean by that. They found their way to our gate. The widow who had nowhere else to turn. The orphan who had been overlooked. The traveler who had walked too long without shelter. They came, and he never turned them away. Not once. I watched him peel himself away from a meal, mid-bite, because word came that someone at the gate with nothing. He would go. He always went. Because I rescued the poor who cried out for help, and the fatherless who had none to assist them. The one who was dying blessed me. I made the widow's heart sing. Job 29 verses 12 to 13. I have heard people talk about generosity as though it's a transaction, as though you give so that you get something back. Job did not behave like that. He gave because he genuinely, quietly believed that everything he held was not truly his, that it all passed through his hands on its way to someone who needed it more. And he gave consistently, not just when the harvest was full, not just when the mood was light. He gave even when the year had been hard, Even giving costs something real. If I have denied the desires of the poor, or let the eyes of the widow grow faint, if I have kept my bread to myself, not sharing it with the fatherless. Job 31, verse 16 to 17. He could never do that. That was simply not the shape of the man. He was kind in a way that did not perform itself. I want you to understand that, because there are men who are generous in the public and cold at home. There are men who will bow to a stranger and ignore the people who eat at their own table. Job was not that man. He knew the names of his servants, not just the head servants, all of them. He asked about their families. He remembered. When they were sick, he did not simply send someone else to manage them. He went himself. Job 31, verses 13 to 15. If I have denied justice to any of my servants, whether male or female, when they had a grievance against me, what will I do when God confronts me? What will I answer when called to account? Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one form us, both within our mothers? That belief, that every person bore the same mark of creation, was not a theology he kept locked in prayer. He lived it. I saw in the way he never spoke down to a man who worked his fields, in the way he listened, really listened, when someone else came to him with a grievance. He would sit, he would be still, he would let the person finish speaking before he ever opened his mouth and reply. That was rare then. I wonder if it is any less rare now. Men listened to me expectantly, waiting in silence for my counsel. Job 29, verse 21. He carried people's dignity as carefully as he carried his own. And that, more than anything, is what made them trust him. The word they used about him, blameless. I never heard him use it about himself. He was not a man of religious pride. He did not speak about his offerings or his sacrifices or his obedience as though they were achievements to be polished and put on display. He feared God. Not in the way people fear a thunderstorm, where you flinch, where you wait for it to pass. His fear was more like reverence. Like the way you instinctively lower your voice when you walk into a place that is sacred and still. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. Job 1, verse 1. He shunned evil. I want you to sit with that phrase for a moment. Not he avoided the obvious things. Not he was mostly good. He shunned it, meaning he moved away from it deliberately, carefully, with intention. I saw it in business dealings. When a man came to him with an arrangement that would have profited us greatly, but dealt unfairly with someone who had no power to object, Job turned it down without hesitation, without consulting me or anyone else. I used to ask him, sometimes quietly after the man had left, "Are you not frustrated? You could have." And he would look at me with those eyes so steady and say, "I could not have. Not, I remained who I am before God." I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. Job 31 verse 1. He guarded his heart with that same intentionality in every area of his life. What a man makes a covenant with his own eyes, that a man of genuine and serious devotion. And then the day came. I will not pretend it was simple. I will not stand here and tell you that it was clean or easy to watch. It was not. In a single day, one day, the messengers came one after another, and each one brought a news heavier than the last. The livestock, the servants, the fire, and then our children. I watched my husband receive that last word, and I will tell you what he did. He tore his robe, he shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground and worshipped and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." Job 1, 20-21. I did not understand it then. I'll be honest with you. There was a moment in those dark weeks that followed when I could not reach him, when the suffering had pressed so deep and so long that I spoke words I am not proud of. His wife said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." Job 2, verse 9. I was broken, and I will not pretend otherwise. Loss does things to a person. It can make a desperate voice come out of faithful words. I was in grief that I did not know how to carry. But what I am telling you tonight is not about my worst moment. I am telling you about his. Even in that, even in his response to me, which was gentle, which was patient, even in his own agony, he did not curse God. He did not renounce what he had spent a lifetime building. He replied, "You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. Job 2, verse 10. He held on. I don't know how, but he held on. What Job showed me, what I did not fully understand until much later, is that faith does not require silence and suffering. He cried, he argued, he questioned. He sat in the ash heap and said, with full and raw honesty, that he could not make sense of what had happened to him. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Job 3, verse 3. He was not performing peace he did not feel. He went to God with everything, including the parts that were ragged and untidy and full of anguish. And somehow, that honest conversation with God was not considered sin. It was considered relationship. But I desired to speak to the Almighty and to argue my case with God. Job 13, verse 3. There is something in that which I have held onto ever since. You do not have to be tidy before you go to God. You do not have to have everything resolved, your grief resolved, before you're allowed to kneel. Job went in the fullness of his pain, and he went honestly, and he met God there. And then, because God is who he is, the turning came. Not when Job had cleaned himself up, not when he had finished grieving, not when he had said the right things in the right order, but after Job prayed for the very friends who had caused him additional pain in his suffering, after he extended grace to them. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Job 42, verse 10. Twice as much. The Lord gave back abundantly, deliberately, what had been taken. New children, new flocks, new seasons, and something that cannot be listed among the stock, a deeper knowing, a faith that had been tested in fire and had not melted, a soul that now knew, not just believed, that God was present, even in the place where no presence seemed possible. The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part. Job 42, verse 12. I stood beside that man. I watched him go. I watched him come through. And what I can tell you, the thing I most want you to carry with you into this night, is that the God who held him all the way through. Not just at the beginning, not just at the restoration, in the middle, in the ash heap, in the silence, in the nights that felt endless. God was there. I have been thinking about what I want to say to you in these final moments. I have been thinking about you, lying here in the quiet, about what it is you might be carrying into this night. Maybe it is a grief that has no name. Maybe it is a relationship that has grown cold and you do not know how to warm it. Maybe it is a loss you have been circling for months, quietly and carefully, because you are not sure you can look at it directly. Maybe it is fear, the kind that settles into the chest at night and makes it hard to breathe slowly. Maybe you are simply tired, bone tired, the kind of tired that sleep does not always fix. Because it's not your body that is weary. It is your soul. I know that kind of tired. I've lived inside of it for a long season. And what I want you to tell you, what I need you to hear before you close your eyes, is this. Job did not have all the answers. He never received a full explanation for what had happened to him or why. After all those chapters of questions, after all that anguish, all that waiting, all that silence from heaven, God's answer, when it finally came, not a theological breakdown. It was presence. A voice out of the whirlwind. Not a list of reasons. Not a defense. Just God showing up. Speaking. Being there. Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Wherever were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Job 38, verses 3 to 4. Do you hear what God is saying in that? He is not scolding Job. He is reminding him of something enormous and tender at the same time. He is saying, I was here before the first morning. I set the cornerstone while the stars sang together. I shut the sea behind its doors, and when it burst from the womb of darkness. And have I not left? I have not looked away. I have not forgotten your name. That was enough for Job. Not the answers, not the explanation, not a reversal of everything that had been taken. Just God. Present. Speaking. Knowing Him. And I want to ask you something softly. Right now, in the quiet of this moment, what if that is enough for you too? Not the solution you have been praying for, not the door that finally opens, not the phone call, or the healing, or the answer that you have been standing at the window waiting for. It's just Him, just His presence, here, in this room, in this darkness, in this night. Can I tell you something that still undoes me, even now, after everything? When Job said those words, my ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. He had lost everything. He was sitting in ashes. His body was broken. His friends had failed him. I had failed him. And yet, in that moment, that devastated, stripped back, nothing left moment, he saw God more clearly than he had ever had when the flocks were full and the children were laughing and the house was whole. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Job 42, verse 5. There are things that only suffering can show you. I do not say that lightly. I do not say it as a comfort that costs me nothing. I say it as a woman who has sat in the ruins of her own life and found, to her utter astonishment, that God was already there. Waiting, quiet, steady, present in a way that the good seasons had never quite revealed. When everything else is stripped away, the noise, the plans, the busyness, the voices of other people telling you what to think and feel and do, what remains is just you and God. And that, I have come to believe, is not punishment. That is intimacy. So I want to speak directly to the part of you that is afraid tonight. The part of you that is whispering, what if it does not get better? What if it is too far gone? What if I have waited too long, prayed too little, drifted too far? I want to speak to that part of you and say, gently, firmly, with everything I have, no. The God who spoke to Job out of the whirlwind is the same God who is in this room with you right now. The same God who was present in the ash heap, in the lowest, loneliest, most stripped back place a human can ever occupy, is present in your lowest place too. He has not turned his face from you. Not once. Not ever. Not even in the moments when it felt most certainly like he had. And I will tell you something else. The morning always came. For Job, the morning always came. After the longest night, after the silence that stretched so far it felt like it would never end, after the ash heap, after the grief that had no floor to it, morning came, and it will come for you. May that be your testimony too, sweet one. Not just that you heard about God, but that in the night that cost you something real, something deep, something you could not put into words. In those nights, you have seen him. In the waiting, in the losses, in the places that made no sense and offered no comfort and gave back nothing. In all of it, he was there. He is here, right now, in this room, in this stillness, in this night. And he will be still and always and faithful when morning comes. Sweet friend, if this story has touched something tender in you tonight, you don't have to carry it alone. There is a small, peaceful family I often send nighttime prayers to, gentle reminders of God's love, that whispers of comfort for hearts that feel the weight of the dark. If your nights have felt long, if your heart has felt heavy, you are warmly invited to join us. The link is below whenever you're ready. You are welcome among us, dear friend. You always have been. And sweet friend, if this part of Job's story stirs something in you, if you feel God gently rebuilding places in your heart, if you send Him restoring things you thought were gone, I want to offer you something. There is a small, peaceful space where I've gathered more for you. Prayers, scriptures, gentle guides for your walk with God, resources to help you grow, heal, and rest in Him. It's our PayHip store, a quiet place created with love for hearts like yours. If our prayers and messages have been a blessing, you are warmly invited to visit and explore whatever speaks to your heart. The link is below whenever you're ready. There's no rush. And before we part tonight, if your body is still holding tension even after resting in this story, I want you to know I have something gentle for you in the description below. It is a cervical ergonomical pillow that has made my own nights so much kinder. It cradles the curve of your neck and allows your body to finally soften into rest. It's a small thing, but sometimes the small things make the biggest difference. You'll find the link below whenever you're ready. And now, my dear friend, may the Lord surround you with His peace, be present with you in every place of fear, and lead you gently into deep and restful sleep. May you rest knowing that you are never alone and that God is with you, even in the places that feel uncertain. And now, with a tender kiss of comfort, your reminder that you are safe, loved, and held, I send you into His care. Good night.